worship, let us open our minds and hearts to the place of quiet, to the silent prayer for healing of pain, and the soft, gentle coming of love. When we light the chalice, those at home are welcome to light their own chalice or candle to be more involved with the service. This chalice reading is from Mark Koski. It's called All Animal Chalice. We light this chalice, spark of the original flame of creation, to remind us that we all are on this planet, the furried, the feathered, the finned, and the scaled, along with featherless bipeds. We are all made of the same stuff, star stuff, and all share a common destiny. We all share the same hopes of a life free from harm and suffering, and the same aspirations of happiness, love, and flourishing. Being able to express our own unique natures and capacities as we may. We are just that many diverse perspectives from which the whole is seen and experienced. We are intertwined, interconnected, and interdependent, and it is good. Our opening words are from Gustave Flaubert. I try to discover in the rumor of forests and waves the words that other men could not hear. And I pricked my ears to listen to the revelation of their harmony. Welcome, everyone, to Eastrose Fellowship, Unitarian Universalist, the worship service today. I am the Reverend Sue Matrenga Watson, and I will be your worship leader. I go by the pronouns she and her. Our welcome reading is from Marilyn Falwowski. We welcome you. We know you come here for different reasons: to find community, to seek your spiritual and personal truths, to question, to nurture your heart and soul, to be nurtured, to explore new ideas, to find comfort, and perhaps to find the answers to some of your bigger questions. We welcome you. We know that you come from different places, different religions, different beliefs, and different backgrounds. We hope you will find comfort, connection, challenge, and love here. We hope that you will find ways to provide outreach to others in Eastrose, in our local community, and our world community. We also acknowledge the lands on which Eastrose Fellowship, the building, sits, and those that are home now to our widespread communities. Up there is a listing of the native tribes. The lands are the traditional village sites of the Multnomah, Wasco, Wishram, Cowlitz, Klamath, Clackamas, and bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapua, Malala, and many other peoples who made their lives here. We thank the original caretakers of this land and their descendants who are among us still. Our speaker today is one of Eastrose's community ministers, Reverend Barbara Stevens. Her sermon is on the intelligence of other living things. If you have a joy and concern and you would like to share with the congregation while you're here, you can come up at that time. If you're online, please put it in the chat and it will be your joy and or concern will be passed on to me and I can share it. It's good to see you all in the chapel and those joining us from home. So let's turn around and wave hello to those online to show that we welcome you.
Hello, everybody.
Hello there. Good morning. Being a person that often will be at home watching the service, it touches my heart when I see the congregation do that. I don't know if anyone shared that with you, but it really, for me, I like it a lot. Once again, welcome, and it is good to be together. I have 3 readings, and they're not too long, they're pretty short. The first one is by John Muir. Nature's object in making animals and plants might possibly be the first of all the happiness, each one of them. Not the creation of all for the happiness of one, it's for all. Why ought man to value himself as more than infinitely small, composing unit of the great and unit of creation? The universe would be incomplete without man, but it would also be incomplete without the smallest transmicroscopic creature that dwells beyond our conceitful eyes and knowledge. The second reading is from Dave Altenlanden. All these theological teachings regarding animals among Creek, Cherokee, and other native peoples are grounded in close observation and experience of real animals, and in a sense of dependence upon those animals for both physical and spiritual subsistence. When native people stop encountering animals in their daily lives and stop depending on them for sustenance and spiritual power, the animals become correspondingly less important in their theologies. There is surely a lesson for those who seek to recover animal theologies in other faith traditions as well. And the last reading, it's a very short one, by Albert Einstein. Imagination is more important than knowledge. Our opening hymn will be A Place in the Choir. Please stand as you're willing and able. It is a fast song, so just to kind of do a warning. Oh, I have it right here too. Okay. And the words are on the screen. Well, soon the words will be on the screen. There we go. And enjoy the pictures. Mary chose all these pictures that were wonderful. Oh, Wonderful. It's story time?
Oh. All right, well, here we go then. Yes. This is a song about the lowly worm. It is a reminder that we need to respect even the little creatures that crawl and dig in the dirt and the insects and everything. It's an old Sunday school hymn for kids. And are the words going to be up there? Yeah. So you are welcome to join in if you want to.
To the tune of,
No, what's the
to the tune of, oh God, our help in ages past.
For those who know that.
Our offertory words from Kayla Parker. We know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We are grateful for this and commit together to ensure the funds we gather collectively to do a greater good for ourselves and our world than we could have done alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of this congregation, and may we give in love and in hope. We will now receive the offering for the support of this religious community and the work in the world. At Eastrose, when we collect the offering, half of the cash collection goes to an organization performing charitable works in the community. This quarter, our partner is Just Our Future, and it was formerly called Human Solutions. A little bit of info about Just Our Future. Just Our Future. Our Just Future. Our Just Future. Counters the forces that keep people and communities in poverty by building relationships and assessing that great need the community needs now and for future generations. If you are a first-time visitor, you are welcome to let the basket pass. You are our guest. The baskets in the chapel will be passed, and for those viewing online, it's easy to donate by visiting Eastrose's website donation page and scan the code on the screen. Now, the gifts of the congregation will now be most gratefully received.
Once.
See my face anyway, right? Yeah. Okay. You want to get that? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Now I feel tall. Yes. I look like it, don't I? Yeah, I know. That's what I don't like about these, but it's all right. So, hello and welcome. So for most of the time that humans have lived on Earth, we understood that life was sacred, all life, including animal life. For instance, the Creek Indians, they knew that animals had been here before we were. Their myths told that animals created the world and created us. In fact, they believed that not only were animals wise, but in many ways they were superior to us. The native people of the Arctic believe that reindeer and caribou can understand our thoughts and respond to them. And the people in Australia, the Aborigines there, they believe that animals are sentient. I mean, what a surprise, right? Now, as one of the readings that Sue read for us, it's probably partly because these people lived intimately with the natural world and with animals, the creatures they shared the planet with. And we share the planet with, too, but we don't always remember that. But they couldn't help but know it. They depended on the creatures for food, for clothing, and they understood that they were their siblings. They were related, that we were in some ways one. Now, I'm not quite sure why that changed, if that was true everywhere, how it became true that we in the West, at least, no longer think of other creatures as being sentient or having feelings or even experiencing pain. But certainly we see that break, that change in the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Bible too, but certainly in the Hebrew Bible is where it started. And there's some places in Genesis. I'm going to read you Genesis 9, 1 through 3, that sort of epitomize the attitude that arose. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you shall rest on every animal of the earth and on every bird of the air, on everything that creeps on the ground, and on all the fish of the sea. Into your hands they are delivered. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And just as I gave you the green plants, I give you everything. So, this is how we have lived for thousands of years, some of us anyway, and it shows. We act as if the earth belongs to us, not to itself, as if other creatures don't matter. One of the things that was true, at least for a long time, and is still true sometimes today, as scientists study animals, they discover something that seems pretty obvious if you just watch an animal, but they find that, oh yeah, they really do experience pain. I mean, it makes sense they would feel pain. How do you stay safe if you can't feel pain? However, we need researchers to prove it to us. And yet, if you see an elephant child hovering over the dead body of its mother, or the chimpanzee mother who shrieks when her baby is taken from her, it's pretty clear that not only do they feel physical pain, they feel emotional pain as well. And yet, sometimes I wonder, the people who think that that is not so, that we are just putting our own feelings and thoughts onto them and imagining something that isn't there, I wonder if it's possible that people like that also don't believe other human beings really experience pain. That there's a lack of empathy in general. We certainly have been horrible, not just to animals, but to one another. As Jean mentioned, there's so much war and violence in the world, and that's nothing new. So it's easy to know, if we just pay attention, that people, animals, insects, everything that lives feels that their lives matter. And Native peoples tended to understand that. And now we have scientific evidence of some of it. And now I like the scientific method. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with it. It can be very valuable. And if we're using the scientific method to help us remember and relearn the value of life in the world, that's great. I don't really have a problem with it. It's not the only way to know, but it is one way. Now, we can say from research that animals are wondrous and amazing creatures, just as we are. And why should they not be? It kind of makes sense if you believe in evolution, that all the traits that we have would exist in animals as well. Like, evolution is, as they say, conservative. That means that evolution comes up with some trait that seems to work, and they mimic it later down the line. So, like, we have arms and legs because not only did other creatures, but, fish had fins that developed into legs. You sort of evolve in this, one thing evolves into another in a logical progression. That would be true also with problem solving. I mean, it kind of makes sense that creatures would need to solve problems in order to survive. Maybe their problem-solving skills aren't as complicated as ours, and yet, who knows? Or feelings. You have to have feelings in order to relate to one another. There are many creatures who have complex social communities, so they have to feel, they have to have a certain ability to have empathy, just as we do. Why would it develop in us if it didn't exist anywhere else? Now, it is also true that just because something is reasonable doesn't mean, or seems reasonable to us, doesn't mean it's true. We believed once upon a time that the bigger the brain, the smarter the person. Well, that's not so. In the 19th century, people thought that diseases were spread by vapors. Well, they could smell those, but they couldn't see the germs, so it made sense. But we know now it's not so. However, let's talk about what science has to tell us. But first, let's talk about what intelligence is. You probably all know that IQ tests measure a certain type of intelligence from a somewhat limited cultural viewpoint, and I suppose they are useful in certain realms. However, scientists obviously can't use IQ tests with other creatures. So what do? One thing they test for is self-awareness. So children, humans, develop self-awareness around the age of 2. That's when they recognize themselves in a mirror. So they've done tests to see what animals recognize themselves in mirrors, and at least 7 of them have passed this test, including wolves and dolphins and apes, and ants. So even ants have some awareness of themselves. There's also problem solving. Well, many creatures can solve problems. As we said, it only makes sense if you are going to survive in the wild, you have to figure out how to get out of a bad situation. And wolves, for example, are good at getting out of cages and escaping from places. Humans have given different apes all kinds of problems, and they solve them. We've got crows who use tools. So if problem solving is intelligence, we are, again, not alone in having it. Now, one thing that people tend to say is, well, human beings are the only people who know they're going to, or creatures who know they're going to die. And, well, maybe that's true. It's hard to judge that. I don't know what tests they might come up with. Perhaps sometime in the future we'll figure this out. Anecdotal evidence would suggest that some animals at least know when they are close to death, and they will act in different ways. Do they know that there is a future? Do they understand that everybody dies and, that's happening for them someday? Who knows? Maybe, maybe not. But they certainly grieve, at least to be scientific. There is evidence that they exhibit mourning behavior. We already talked about the baby elephant that will walk around its mother for a while and stay with its mother who's died. And the chimp whose baby is taken away, that's a kind of grief also. It doesn't have to be death for us to grieve. Some members of the ravens, for example, dolphins, elephants, as I mentioned, and apes will all gather around dead members of their community. They will try to bury the person with leaves or grass or something. They touch the dead body. Children, as we say, not just elephant babies, but also others, will stay with the deceased parent, usually the mother. And mothers will carry their dead offspring around with them for days. It's hard for me to understand how behavior that mimics our grieving behavior would not be grief in another species. Obviously, we don't know what's in their heads. But we can empathize with something that is not like us. Now, there's not really a lot of research around whether animals have deities or religious practices, or whether they think about thinking, whether they wonder about the purpose of life, whether they want to leave a legacy, things like that. We don't know. Who can say? But it's clear that they have a wisdom far greater than we understand. And as many Native peoples knew, they are worth listening to and learning from. So, if that is true, then how do we behave toward these creatures we share this earth with? It would seem kind of reasonable if there is that wisdom, like wisdom of babies, that factory farming would probably not be a great thing to do. Do we continue to do research on animals? Vaccines, for example, are first given to animals before they're given to people to study. Do we not do that and just study the vaccines on people? Do we stop making vaccines? I mean, those are not easy questions. The Jains, it's a religious group, who, like the Buddhists, believe that all things are one, they're an Eastern faith, they carry brooms with them to sweep the ground so that they will not step on any creature that may be in front of them. They will not grow crops, because by doing so they could kill a worm, that lovely worm we sang about. But somebody, if we're going to eat, has to grow crops. So it's in the movie 7 Years in Tibet. It's about the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama wanted to build a movie theater. So the Western person who wrote I don't remember his name now, but he wrote the book from which the movie was taken. He organized a bunch of the Buddhist monks to build this temple, but they refused to dig at the foundation, because by doing so they could kill some insects, right? So what they did was sifted through every shovel full of dirt to take out the insects and the worms so that they didn't kill any life. So I suppose we could do something like that to farm, if we want to get to that extreme. But those are choices we make, knowing that insects actually have more intelligence than we realized. Virginia Morell, in her book Animal Wise, which is where I got a lot of this information, also mentions that ants' brains are a lot like our own. They have nerve cells and they have neuronal connections. They can learn. They change their behavior based on what they've learned. They also have this place in their brain that's a lot like our cortex, with complicated structures. Their brains are the size of, they weigh less than a seed, a grass seed, and yet they're amazingly complex. But fruit flies also learn from experience. I don't know how complex their brains are, but they must be somewhat, if they can make those connections and change their behavior. So it's not just the animals, but it's insects also. So as computers have shown, bigger does not always equal smarter. So we know that there's a lot of intelligence in creatures. They learn, they problem solve, making tools. But they also, the elders provide wisdom to the rest of the community for the social animals. We haven't studied intelligence as much, it seems like, in other creatures, ones who are not social. It's probably harder to study them in many ways. But one thing we know from studying octopuses is that they actually are real intelligent, but they're not social. So we know that the socializing that people have to do, the ability to create structures in which communities can live in harmony together, takes intelligence. But clearly, living by yourself as an octopus takes intelligence as well. So who knows what we've got out there? All these creatures hiding away that we don't think about could be smart too. But in this particular instance, where the elders are providing wisdom, obviously it's a social situation. For instance, with elephants, where the matriarchs will guide the herd, and the adult males will help the young bulls manage their emotions. Sounds kind of like humans, right? Well, there really are some serious problems happening for the elephant herds because the elders are getting killed for their tusks. So we see this breakdown. We see it in our communities as well. When you don't have the elders available for the young people to grow the way that they are meant to evolve or become adults, you have problems. There's also something interesting that we learned about birds. So songbirds, their songs are pretty repetitive, right? At least that's the part that we hear. Apparently there's this other language that they have outside of our ability to hear, in frequencies that we don't take in, but the computers can access. And so now we're hearing these complicated trills and things that are, it's like sentence structure that they're using. There's actually grammar they're seeing in this. So these colonies of birds are talking to one another about who knows what. Maybe they're gossiping. We don't know. And y'all probably know parrots and macaws can mimic human speech, but actually, they don't just mimic it. They can carry on conversations with humans and develop relationships and have caring bonds with the people they live with or talk to. And we all know about dolphins who have their complex whistles and clicks and things that they use to communicate. And they have a complex social structure that they need to talk about, to navigate. All right, so we know they're intelligent, and somehow we have to figure out how to live with this world, this whole world full of beings who are complex and wondrous and sacred. A way to honor their life. I believe it's possible for us to learn to live in harmony again. It's a little hard to imagine, maybe, given how things are going in our world at the moment and the way that we treat one another. Slavery, for instance, is, I don't think, legal anywhere anymore, but it still goes on. And of course, we torture and torment people. And we reject them and send them into the wilderness, basically, to die. So if we can't even take care of one another, can we take care of animals? I don't know. However, when I look farther back in history, thousands of years, I think, well, actually we are doing better. We really are. This is a bad time right now, but we are not butchering people in the streets everywhere with blood flowing through it's just, yes, we are at war, we are doing awful things, but it seems like there's a little less of that than there was. And I'm sticking to that belief. True or not? I think that what we need is an ability to open our hearts and to develop compassion. For me, that means that we need to love one another, and that the more we can love and the more we can create structures that invite that kind of compassion and care, the more we will be able to grow people who care and are compassionate and have empathy and will recognize pain wherever it is found. So that might be something like the pregnant heart that Jack Gilbert speaks about in his poem, Trouble. It's that heart that's ready to give birth. It's swollen with a longing for love and filled with hopes too big for the world. It's the kind of heart that sees the wisdom everywhere, including in animals, that would understand the consciousness of ants and fruit flies. It realizes that all creatures desire comfort and ease. A pregnant heart desires that peace be part of all our lives. So may we find a way forward. First, discovering our own pregnant heart and opening up to the pain and the joy and the love within ourselves and that of others. To move forward with kindness, to figure out how to navigate these difficult ethical questions that arise when our survival comes up against the survival of something else. And that does happen. Everything has to eat. For there to be life, there has to be death. It's not necessarily bad, but it makes for hard choices. So may we find wisdom and the strength and the courage to learn to live with less, to learn to watch and care and listen, and come to know all creatures as our friends, to remember that we are not the pinnacle of creation, but a part of it. And you know, if we really are so wonderfully intelligent and have this capacity to create marvelous tools and great destruction, we have a great responsibility as well. It is up to us to live in peace and harmony, to make it possible for future generations to know the joy of this incredible planet. May we figure out how to share. And now, let us sing hymn number 10. Actually, the words are going to be up there, so Blue Boat Home. Oh, please rise as you are willing and able.
Far away from the road.
We extinguish the chalice with these words by Martha L. Munson. We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. The closing words are by an ancient scholar. From the cowardness that shrinks from new truth, from the laziness that is content with half-truths, from the arrogance that thinks it knows all the truth, O God of truth, deliver us. Amen.
And as we leave this place, may we go remembering that we are one with all that lives, and all that lives is sacred. May we go with peace and love and compassion in our hearts, now and always. Blessed be.
Beautiful. It's time for announcements. A special thanks goes out to those who work so hard for this service: Mary Reese, Reverend Barbara Stevens, John Netherton, and Phyllis Adams. Another announcement is the auction, which we held, was it last week or the week before? Gosh. Yeah. Okay, it raised $2,510.27 for Eastrose, as well as $140 in raffle tickets. And our lightning round A recipient nonprofit group was Mainspring, and they received $448. Next week's service will be Who is Behind That Mask with Carol Knox, and the worship leader will be Patty Walsh. There is a trail announced in the Petals, a hike announced in the Petals, and it was written wrong. It is the Eastern Trailhead. Don't take the Western that it's written, because I don't know what will happen. But anyway, it's Wednesday, that hike. And Eric right here is the person spearheading that. Another announcement is from the family ministry. Next week, right after services, Halloween crafts for kids in the Thatcher room in the back. Decorate a mini pumpkin, make a monster ornament, and take home a treat bag. Costumes in all ages are welcome. Okay? Starting in November, Soulful Home, a new RE program for the whole family, weaving spiritual exploration into everyday life, whether or not you attend church in person. For all ages and generations, contact Tara Toller, there she is, or email familyministry@eastrose.org to sign up or to get more information. It's free, and all are welcome. Okay. I think that's okay, Keen.
This is just a final reminder that tomorrow night we are doing our Freud's Last Session gathering here. It's a two-person play reading that basically creates a conversation between Freud in the very last years of his last weeks of his life, and C.S. Lewis, who is a staunch and recently converted Christian, talking about life and religion and spirituality and God and sex and a variety of other topics. And it's a pretty wide-ranging discussion, and it falls right into our fourth principle of a search for truth and meaning. I hope you will all be here. I hope you all free to bring friends, that the goal of this is to have other people here besides our own normal group. Those of you that are new to us, please feel free to come back tomorrow. It's free. It's a chance to get together, and it's a chance to see and experience something that I saw and experienced last spring and was totally taken by, and that's why it's coming back. So. There's flyers outside. 7 o'clock is when it starts here tomorrow night. There will be a chance for a discussion afterwards if people stick around, and there will be coffee and probably some cookies afterwards. So we're not serving a full meal, sorry. But anyway, please come. Tell your friends.
Food is always good. Well,
Sue, I have one.
oh, yes.
It'll be shorter than that. Am I heard?
Yeah.
Okay. Tara, I want to thank you so much for stepping up. Tara is our new RE coordinator and
Family ministry.
Family ministry. Okay. RE stands for religious education, but it's now family ministry. I'll get there. Anyway, and she has been mucking through all of the stuff that has accumulated back in the various classrooms, and Linda Shaldock has been helping a lot. I've been working on it a little bit. One of the things that was discovered recently was a large stack of posters. Many of you are familiar with this. Linda Randall designed it. I think Ron had a hand in it too. Ron's a member. Linda was the director of religious education. This dates from 1991. There is a large stack of them on the table back in the Thatcher room. If you would like to have one, please take one. There are a few that are signed. If you would like to make a contribution for one, there's a bowl out there. You can throw a little cash in the bucket, but mostly we don't want to throw them away, but we cannot keep them all. So we made the executive decision that we are mostly giving them away. Talk to you about it. Other congregations in the cluster might be interested. But it's expression of our 7 principles, have beautiful chalices on it, so enjoy it.
We have one in our house framed on the wall.
Do we have a good photograph of it? Because if we wish to give it away, having a good picture, we say, would you like one of these? Would be cool.
That would be great,
But there is some urgency to getting these things out of.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's one in the office that's framed. We can get pictures of. I'm not worried about getting rid of them. My guess is it will take a little while. We will keep them available for in a while. I don't know, not indefinitely.
In 32 years.
Anybody else have anything? Okay, then the service is over. Thank you all for attending in person and online. For those that are online, please sign out of YouTube, and then you go on Zoom, and you can be part of the conversation there. We do have coffee and tea, and please stay and enjoy that. And also, have a great Sunday.